I'll tell you a little bit about Charlie. I met Charlie and shook his hand, and he won't remember who I was because he was at CPAC, which is the national version of this. It's where the conservatives go to hang out in Washington, D.C. once a year. It is absolutely fantastic event. It's a little bit bigger than the crowd that we have here. They have in excess of 10,000 people that go to CPAC. I mean, it's huge. And they have an exhibit hall with, we have some exhibits here. I mean, there's probably close to 100 different exhibitors, one of which is Turning Point USA. Charlie Kirk is the executive director of Turning Point USA, and they are an absolutely fantastic group of people. What they do is organize conservative students on high school and college campuses all over the country. They are also troublemakers. I mean, there he is. They are unafraid. If you see what's going on in our campuses, and you've seen it on the nightly news, you know what's going on. They're shutting down conservative speech, and I'm sure Charlie's going to give us some examples of what's going on. But if you're on Twitter and you're not following it, it's TPUSA, right? At TPUSA. You need to follow what Charlie and Turning Point USA is doing. It is unbelievable. These kids are fantastic. The ones I met at CPAC at their exhibit are just unbelievable. They're smart. Well, they're conservative, so that kind of is redundant. I get that. But they're just absolutely fantastic, again, all across the country. And we need this new generation of conservatives because a lot of us are getting a little bit long in the tooth, right, Dwight? He's hard of hearing. He didn't even hear. That's good. The thing that I really, really admire, though, Charlie, is that, again, it's young people, it's on college campuses. They are right in the line of fire, and they're doing just tremendous things. So I know you're going to enjoy this talk. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a warm welcome to Charlie Kirk. You are the man.
I love it. I love the hat.
Go get it. Oh, thanks.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. It's a pleasure to be out here in Vegas. Thank you for organizing this wonderful event. I'm just going to talk for a little bit, 10, 15 minutes about what's going on these on college campuses today, and we'd love to have a discussion and a conversation with all of you. I usually see a lot of questions around this topic happening, and I'm going to really dive deep into the threat to our country the modern American left poses through our educational system today. So I'm Charlie Kirk, born and raised from Chicago, Illinois. The fun thing about Illinois is we have term limits, a little bit different than most states. 1 term in office, 1 term in jail. So, it's a little bit different. When we ask for our governor's cell number, we actually mean his cell number. See, that's an Indians hat right there. See, who won the World Series? Okay, come on. Oh, you let us win. Oh, you felt bad for us. Okay, just like Hillary let Trump win, right? So, funny story, I am the second biggest Chicago Cubs fan alive. The biggest is my 95-year-old grandmother who hasn't missed a game since, World War II broke out. It's unbelievable. And so I got to see the Cubs win the World Series with her. And when they won the World Series in the way that we won it, 10 innings, it was unbelievable. I said, that's it. Trump is going to win the presidency because the world is coming to an end. That is it. Because I said nothing else could possibly happen if the Cubs won the World Series. So appreciate the commitment. Indians look pretty good this year, though, I got to say. It's your, maybe, we'll see. We'll see, maybe. Anyway, so born and raised in Chicago. My other grandmother passed away in the mid-1990s, lifelong Republican, never voted for a Democrat. But after she passed away, she's been voting for Democrats ever since. So, that's right. No, you're not kidding. So I started this organization, Turning Point USA, when I was 18 years old, right out of high school. I did this instead of going to college. It was the best decision I ever made. And now we've grown to 1,100 college and high school campuses across the country. We have our booth right back there. Give it up for our amazing young patriots. The stickers, I see our stickers out there. Big government sucks, free markets, free people. Those are all of our messaging. So I'll just give you a quick example here. I'm not going to say the school name. I want to say the school name, but I can't, but I want to say it. I got an email today from one of our chapters, high school chapters, and it was from one of the administrators, and he said, Charlie, I understand you run this conservative organization called Turning Point USA. Yeah, what's going on? And he said, there's been some very provocative posters put up in our hallway. I said, oh boy, because we got some ones that are a little bit aggressive, calling about socialism as the #1 killer of humanity in the last 100 years. It's like, oh boy, what do our students do now, right? Like, oh boy. And so then he sends me a picture of like the least controversial poster that we have. It says, America is the greatest country in the history of the world, period. And he's like, this has to come down. This is offensive to our international students. This makes it seem like America's a better country than other countries. Like, yeah, no duh. Like, yeah, what are you kidding me? And this is what they're teaching in our schools. And I literally wrote back. I said, first of all, is this a debate? Like, are you kidding me? Like, we are the greatest country ever to exist in the history of the world. And this, in our schools, though, our best and brightest schools, quote unquote, they are deconstructing this belief that America's even a good idea. I cannot underestimate the influence that the modern American left has had through our educational system. I believe it is the single greatest threat to Western civilization today. And the deterioration of our fundamental values and the attack of the fabric of this country all starts on college campuses. Look, I love talking about the fake news media and about how sick and twisted CNN is. That's all important. But where do these journalists get their ideas from? Where do these copy editors get indoctrinated? It's our universities. The left made a strategic and deliberate play in the late 1950s and early 1960s to infiltrate our colleges and our high schools. And they've been extremely effective. Anyone want to guess what the most read book is on college campuses today? The #1 most required book? Yeah, the Communist Manifesto. The Communist Manifesto is the most read book on college campuses today. And, teachers say, oh, they only got a couple. It was never really been tried, is what they say. Communism's never been tried. That's their big thing. And look no further than the success of Bernie Sanders in the Democratic primary. And I say success for a reason, because he actually did surprisingly well. And actually, you could make an argument that he won the Democratic nomination and Hillary stole it from him. An outward socialist got 14 million votes in a Democratic primary, something that 20 years ago, while the wall still stood in Berlin, you said, no way could a socialist even get any sort of traction. And why is it that an outward socialist is now created? It's a movement, I'm telling you. There's a lot of young people that follow him religiously. And if you try to make fun of it, we can make fun of it, and I will. But if you try to discount it, we're going to be taken by surprise. Because there is a genuine Marxist socialist movement growing in this country, and they're not trying to hide it anymore. They're not being as quiet or as deceptive as the Democrats have been the last 30, 40 years. So Bernie Sanders runs as an open socialist, wins 14 million votes. His #1 contingent of support are young people, millennials. And so we go on these college campuses and we see all these wonderfully left-leaning individuals. And they say, oh, I'm a socialist, I love socialism, blah, 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 blah. And so we start to ask them a series of questions. And so here it is. In 15 seconds or less, here's how to smash socialism with a young person in 15 seconds or less. You ready? Here's all you do. They say, I love socialism. It's so amazing. I say, okay. Do you trust the government? That's the first question you ask. And they'll say, no, I don't trust the government. And then the next question you ask is, then why do you want to make government bigger? I don't want to make government bigger. Well, then you're not a socialist. Let me tell you that. You're definitely not a socialist. So if the very same people that don't trust the government somehow want to make that very government bigger and give more power to that government and give more money to the government, they're contradicting themselves before you even get started. They're actually more anti-establishment, more like a libertarian generation than they are socialist or far to the left. Yet, the left has been so good at selling bad ideas to our generation, and you cannot underestimate their effectiveness. I mean, Barack Obama got elected largely in part because of the groundswell of younger voters on college and high school campuses, mostly colleges. And the future of our country will be decided whether or not we can allow our perspectives and our viewpoints, at least diversity of thought, to be heard on college campuses. And so, the University of Berkeley, real screwed up place, they say, we stand for diversity. That's their big thing. They have a website committed to diversity. They have 15 full-time people that do nothing but try to make Berkeley a more diverse place. That's what they do all day long. What that encompasses, I have no idea. Yet, the only type of diversity that they are worried about is racial and ethnic diversity, when in reality, the most important type of diversity is intellectual and ideological diversity. And so, thank you. Yeah, you should applaud that. It's the most important type of diversity, actually. And to put it simply, colleges have become a place where they want everyone to look different but think the same. Let me say that again. Colleges have become a place where they want everyone to look different but think the same, where critical thought, disagreement, or any sort of dissension from the status quo is immediately and instantaneously met with accusations such as you're a racist, you're a bigot, you're a homophobe, your ideas have no place here on a college campus. And to put it simply, this tells you a lot about who the left is as a political movement, who they are. The left hates the idea that there are other ideas. The most intolerant people in the world are the people that preach tolerance. I get such a kick out of these Antifa people, right? They come and they protest me all the time, and they call for my death, which I think is wonderfully difficult for them to try to pull off, but whatever. They're always saying, "Oh, kill Charlie Kirk," all this. These are unbelievably radical, violent people. The left, they've become fascists, and yet they're protesting fascism. And so they say, "Oh, we're a very tolerant people." Meanwhile, they're smashing windows and burning cars and saying this person should not be allowed to speak on a college campus. And so think about it for a second. If you are a conservative on a college campus, Stanford, UCLA, you have to sit through 4 years of nonstop leftist indoctrination. 4 years. And yet the liberal students on campus can't allow a peaceful conservative speaker to come for an hour, optional attendance. They can't allow that to happen. Now, why is that? It's because the left knows that when our ideas, conservative ideas, are allowed to actually be heard in an open venue and forum, that we win converts at a record pace. And so it's not that young people are opposed to conservative ideas. It's not true. It's that they're not exposed to them, that they don't actually hear them. And it's not by accident. It's actually incredibly deliberate. Because the left learned, and they've realized, especially since 2010, as they lost the House, they lost the Senate, they said, actually, we can't even risk our ideas to have any sort of disagreement. Let's suffocate any sort of semblance of free speech. Let's destroy the discussion, and let's own the narrative. And they've done a really good job of that on college campuses. And make no mistake that when you have a generation that thinks there's only one way to think. So here, I'll give you a great example. I went to Columbia the other day to go meet with our chapter there, and a professor came by, and he's like, "Oh, you're a racist group?" "Oh, yes, it's really creative." And I said, I asked him, I said, so tell me your stance on free speech. He says, "Oh, we are wonderfully committed to the values of free speech at Columbia." I said, "Okay, well, give me an example of that." "Well, we have spirited and intense debates about who would make a better president, Hillary Clinton or Bernie Sanders." And I said, what? Like, that's crazy. Like, literally, they think that that's what free speech is about. It's like, what degree of socialism do we want for this country? That's their idea of free speach. It's like, who is a better philosopher, right? Like Karl Marx or Engels. Like, that's their debate, right? Who had a greater impact on the 20th century positively, LBJ or FDR? Like, that's their idea of free speech. Is speech that only pertains to their kind of worldview. Make no mistake that whether it be the money George Soros is pumping into these universities or the globalist agenda in both parties, by the way, both parties have succumbed to this, is if we don't get our campuses sorted out really quick and we don't cut off the money supply through alumni dollars and really ask for structural reform, we're going to have a country that's rather unrecognizable very, very soon. And look, I'm a big supporter of the president. I love what he's doing on many different things, and I'm glad he won. But the left is winning the culture war, okay? Like, we might be winning politically, winning a record amount of governor's mansions and state houses, state reps, and the Senate and the House. All that's great. But the culture, the left is winning, the left is winning. So how do we turn that around? A lot of it's what our organization is doing. The left has gone so far out of control, the suppression of free speech, the intimidation of differing thought, that we are seeing a massive amount of new support come towards our organization and our movement. And look no further. I mean, I could prove it to you. We're going to have an event in Palm Beach where we're going to have upwards of 3,000 students in attendance, 3,000 students in attendance from all across the country, all 50 states. We already have 2,000. It's amazing. Thank you. We had the nation's largest ever Young Women's Leadership Summit. We had 1,000 young women at our Women's Leadership Summit back in June. So we are growing like gangbusters on these campuses, and so thanks to a lot of your support in many different ways, financial and moral and spiritual support. But this is a battle that has never been waged at this scale because the left has owned college campuses for so long, and we have ceded the territory for way, way, way too many decades. And so this is the chance to really take it back and to rebalance and take back this country. So I'd love to have a conversation, answer some questions, ask anything you want. So again, thank you for having me. So I'd love to answer some questions. So thank you. So, yes.
There's other issues other than this, especially for anyone who has a son that they're sending to college today, and the dangers that the young man faces. I'm going through it now with my grandson, and 10 years ago I went through it with my son at UNR, and that is the, what is it, section something or
Well, yeah, I mean, it's,
hookups and
yeah, I mean, it's the sexual assault stuff. It's not section, it's, I'll think of it in a second. But yeah, Betsy DeVos is changing a lot of it. But in essence, they've taken over the entire sexual assault reporting process where if you say something to a young lady and you're a man, that's inappropriate. It could be a form of sexual assault that goes on your record for the rest, forever. Yeah, and so then the college becomes the jury, judge, and executioner, and you're guilty until proven innocent. I can go on forever. It's horrible. Yeah, it's horrible what happens. Yes?
Yes, I looked through your material and I couldn't find the word Constitution.
Oh, it's there. Yeah, we have plenty. That's just a taste. But tpusa.com. So think USA, put a TP in front of it. You'll love it. We have some stuff, probably not there, but I think we have one or two booklets. Hey, Brandon, do we have the founders wrote Twitter? I thought we had that over there, right? The founders had Twitter, right? I think we do. We do, but most people don't know what that even means, to be honest with you. So the Constitution is that's right, Turning Point USA. You like that, right? It's good. So yes.
Do you rank the colleges too, so we know which ones are more liberal and which ones we should send our kids?
Yeah, we kind of do. So there's like 5 good ones and the rest are horrible. So, well, Hillsdale, King's College, New York City, Grove City, Baylor's not horrible. Some of the ones in the Claremont Consortium. But I do have a contrarian point of view, which is I don't think we should send all conservative students to just conservative schools. I think you should do all your work before they go to college, make them read the Constitution, Federalist Papers, Milton Friedman, turn them into warriors, then send them to the most liberal school that's going to improve their life. No, but here's the thing. So to kind of go on a necessary tangent, college, unfortunately, has become almost has become a place that people, it's become an expectation. We ask our high school seniors not why are you going to college, but where are you going to college? Any of you fall victim to that? I do, all the time. I didn't go to college, and I turned out fine. Not everyone needs to go to college to succeed. In fact, I think we need more plumbers and welders and electricians and entrepreneurs and people that actually work with their hands. So the question you always have to ask before you send son or daughter or granddaughter or grandson is, why are you going to college? And I'll give you 3 answers that are unacceptable. My parents are making me. I have to go. All my friends are going. That's the number 3 answers. No, seriously, the 3 biggest answers. So what happens is they get into boatloads of debt. They don't even know what they're studying or why they're going. College is not about life exploration. It should be about career preparation. 2 totally different things. Unfortunately, we've become a society where you are looked down upon and considered less intelligent if you don't go to four-year college immediately. There's community colleges, you could take a gap year, you can work, you could do partial credit, all sorts of different things. You could become a trades, you could have skill, you could actually learn computer programming. There's an amazing amount of opportunity that is outside of going to college, and you'd be amazed that the #1 major in America are soft social sciences. Their communications degrees or their sociology degrees or psychology degrees, they also have the highest levels of unemployment. I look at some of these majors, it's like North African lesbian dance theory. I'm like, what are you doing? Like, no, seriously. The classes that they're teaching at some of these colleges are completely out of control. And when we go to buy houses or we go to buy cars or we go on vacation, we ask the question, what is it in for me? And we bargain on the price and we use consumer-based decision making. With colleges, we just say, oh yeah, sure, whatever it costs, it's fine. They're going to end up better. The national graduation rate for college students is 59%, which means that 41% of people that enter college will not graduate. We have far too many people going to four-year colleges and universities. So I love the question. I know I kind of went on a tangent there, but make no mistake that the agenda is not just to get young people into college. But the left wants as many young people to go to college for two reasons. Number one, they can indoctrinate them. But number two, they can get them really, really into debt so they can own them politically in the future, promise them forgiveness, never actually deliver, then hold them subservient to the Democratic Party for the next 60 years like they have done with other parts of the population. So we have to fight back against that. Yes?
You can attack this problem from an economic point of view. You can convince the employers to give equal weight online university.
It's very difficult. But yeah, I mean, so we employ 100 plus people at Turning Point USA. You know, we don't care where you went to school, and it shocks people when they apply. Like, here's my resume. Like, I couldn't care less. Like, honestly, tell me what you could do, and tell me why you do it, and show me how hard you work. But unfortunately, the Fortune 500 companies, it's all about pedigree. They think it's actually changing, though. In recent surveys of CEOs, they are shocked at how underprepared students from college are for the necessary jobs. The #1 prerequisite at Turning Point USA, the #1 prerequisite that we find our best and hardest workers are people that grew up on a farm. Seriously. Those are the people that work the best. If you grew up on a farm, you're going to be really, really good in this society because you had to wake up early, you were around hard work, you understand saving, you understand rationing, you understand all that. Not to say that if you didn't grow up on a farm, I didn't, you're not going to be successful, but just because you went to Harvard, Princeton, Stanford, Yale, UCLA, or Stanford does not mean you're going to be successful. It's what you do with it that really matters. So, all the way in the back, red shirt.
I got a question to where do we, conservatives, actually kind of start giving liberals back a little bit of some of their own medicine? Like, I have a little bit of a thought where, I don't know, where you see Antifa and they get buzzed in. Everywhere they go, they get buzzed in. I want to know why we don't create, we put out a situation, we do a national conservative, every town, every city, we want to see a cookout on one certain day. On one certain day, we're all going to show up in every town, every city. Can we do this? We have the internet, we have the way to get the word out, and then we show up, and we don't have to worry about buses being buzzed. Where are you going to bus them? You go bus them at 1 or 2? They got to pick now.
Yeah. No, it's a good idea. Yeah.
I don't think they're
Well, they have no argument. The left has no argument. They have feelings. They don't have facts. And they have force. They don't have any sort of logic. So we have to understand first and foremost, if you are a conservative or a libertarian, I'm somewhere in the middle. The most important thing is that we have logic and history and reason and thought and understanding and math and science all on our side. They have feelings. Most people are liberals because they feel a certain way. And I caught a liberal in this the other day on a college campus where she was asking me a question. And she said, Charlie, I really feel that the Trump administration. I said, stop it. I said, I don't care what you feel. And seriously, I couldn't care less. Like, tell me a logical, rational thought. It's like she couldn't process what I was telling her. Well, that's very mean. I couldn't care less how you feel. Like, seriously. Like, I don't care if you think he's a mean person. Like, tell me something rational and logically. They're not programmed or wired to think that way. So, no, they're not. But I got to move on to the next question. I understand your sentiment, though. 5 minutes, you said, in the back? Okay, 5. Okay. I could go all day. So, yeah.
So how successful have you been on high school campuses, given that, high schools are a little different?
Very. We have over 300 active high school chapters across the country. We had over 150 students at our high school leadership conference this summer. High schools are difficult. They're on lockdown to get different ideas in there. So it's been successful, but we need to do even more. So, yes.
Assuming we've got the message they can win the argument, what is the best way for a non-millennial candidate to appeal to a millennial to get the chance to make that argument?
Authenticity is the biggest thing. Run against the political system. The number one thing that unites our generation, number one, is disgust in both political parties. I get the biggest applause lines on college campuses when I go and speak and I rail against both Republicans and Democrats. Because look, I blame both parties for the mess that we're in. Paul Ryan and Mitch McConnell, are you kidding me? This is the best that we have to offer? I mean, by the way, I don't know if I'm allowed to say it, I don't care. Dean Heller's got to go. I mean, like, I don't even understand. Like, sorry. He's a total disaster. Unbelievable joke, disaster. So authenticity. Our generation does not want party loyalty. Forget about that. If you look at the people in the Republican Party and the people in the Democratic Party that have the highest level of youth support, Bernie Sanders and Rand Paul, okay? They are both deliberately at war with their own party, standing for principle instead of party, standing for creative solutions, thinking outside the box, and not afraid to go to places that conservatives don't always go to, right? So if you look at why Bernie Sanders is so popular, young people look at him and says, I don't necessarily, if I even know what he's saying, he's going to give me a bunch of free stuff, but he looks like he believes what he's saying, which is half the battle. And then you have someone super fake, like Hillary, thank goodness they nominated her. It allowed us to just run roughshod over it. But for our party to be successful, if we even have a party anymore, I don't even know if you can call it that, goodness gracious. If our movement to be successful, we have to run candidates that want to go to D.C. to do something, not to be someone, okay? And it's not just, it's also, I have a lot of problems with your governor too, by the way, a lot of problems with your governor. A lot of problems with Sandoval. And it's not about, here's the misinterpretation, right? Is that, so the moderate Republicans will come to me and they'll say, Charlie, you're such a far right winger. Like, it's nothing about how extreme you are the position. It's about staying committed to the principles that you ran on. And so there's some things that I think transcend party lines. Term limits, big thing that we could run on and then institute, right? Running against the institutional political corruption in both parties. You don't have to be super conservative on any issue to believe that. You just have to have a backbone. The greatest political irony that we're living in right now is that Republicans say we can't do anything because we're afraid that we are not going to get reelected. The hilarious thing is if they actually did something, they would all get reelected and we would win a massive amount of seats unlike anything's ever seen. Yet they're afraid to do something because they don't want to get reelected. I've been in Washington. I hate it. We don't have an office there. It's a horrible place. It's the swamp, right? That's kind of the theme. The number one thing that they worry about every single day, and I've walked the halls of Congress, what's the number one thing? Am I getting reelected? Am I getting reelected? It's like it obsesses them. So it's way too much money in the system. So to answer your question, authenticity, run against the political system. Don't be afraid to tell hard truths. You're going to make a lot of enemies. I'm just going to tell you right now, you're going to get some very angry calls from the Chamber of Commerce, but it's part of the battle. So, yes.
They tell you you're far right. I always tell them that I'm still where I was, right in the middle, but the road took a hard left.
Yeah, I mean, they moved the spectrum, right? Like they just moved it away. I mean, and the left have become outward Marxists, so don't give me that. So what is our organization, our organization, Turning Point USA, is considered a radical right-wing organization. Let me tell you what we stand for. We believe America's the greatest country in the history of the world. That's a crazy idea on college campuses. Can't believe that. We believe that free enterprise is the most proven and assured way to lift the most amount of people out of poverty into prosperity ever. We believe the Constitution is the greatest political document ever written by man. We believe that government right now is too big, needs to be scaled back and reconsidered of its size and scope and influence in our life. And finally, we believe that the best solutions in society happen when people are helping people, entrepreneurs are taking risks outside of government intervention. Those are the 5 things we believe in, right? I mean, don't we all believe in those things? Those are not political. And yet they find so much disagreement and so much hostility towards that. So it's not a political battle anymore. We have to realize that. I had a great conversation with my Uber driver coming over, and he said it the best. He said, it's really very simple. It's like, do you believe America is a positive force for good in the world and should continue to exist on a freedom-based platform, or don't you? That's really the argument that we have today. And I think that's one we can win. So one or two more questions, really quick. So any questions? Yes. Well, great school, wonderful school. Hillsdale's phenomenal. Love Hillsdale. Support them, help them, take their online course. You're going to learn a tremendous amount. Love. Really great things to say about Hillsdale. Last question. Yes.
I remember at Freedom Fest, I went to your section.
Yeah, it was like,
They had this really analogy that you say something against them, they're injured, they're a victim, therefore if they're a victim, they're...
that's right. That's correct.
Can you throw that out?
Absolutely. So here, I talked about it in my book, which, by the way, after the speech, I'll be signing some books, and then I do have to head back to the airport for another speech in Phoenix, so I apologize in advance. So I talk about this in my book, about how they train young people to react to disagreement. So they train young people to say, okay, you have someone who disagrees with you, therefore you should immediately be offended, and every time you are offended, you should do whatever you can to silence that person. Therefore, disagreement should lead to silencing. Or you just cut out the middle. Disagreement, silencing, which is exactly what happens. There was a wonderful NPR piece. I can't believe I'm saying this. There was a wonderful National Public Radio piece last week, and I just happened to listen to it. I listen to NPR. It's like listening to MSNBC. You just got to get opposition research, right? NPR is pretty good. I got to give them credit. Not good at what they believe in, but they're good at selling bad ideas. It's very soft-spoken. It's very deliberate. I got to give them credit for that. So it's very soothing too. So I listened to it, and they have this professor from Berkeley on. And she's an African-American woman, very articulate, far to the left, a socialist, self-avowed left-wing socialist. And she said very softly in that kind of NPR voice, you know, I look around at my law students, and they come up to me and they say, you know, I'm so offended by what we talked about today. And she said, what are you talking about? We talked about the Constitution. And she said, and the students would say, but the Constitution represents slavery and represents oppression. And this is a socialist 60-year-old African-American woman professor. And she was reflecting on the radio show. She said, I don't even know what's happening to these young liberals now. I'm so different than them. And so it's happening quicker than you could possibly imagine. Is that if you think that this is the Democratic Party of JFK and of Truman, you're wrong. You know, that is long, long gone. It is a movement and a philosophy that is so adjacent to fascism and towards no disagreement and any sort of dissension of thought whatsoever. So, in closing, I'd love to have you come up to our table, take some books. I'll sign some for as long as I can. Really appreciate being here today. But a couple other thoughts is it's not good enough just to elect people with an R in front of their name. We need to get more involved in primaries. I'm so sick and tired of these people going to Washington and saying they're going to do something and not doing it. We have to hold our own party accountable. Because, look, we control more House and Senate seats than we ever have with a Republican president, and I feel like we're losing. So I appreciate all of you being here today. It's such a pleasure, and with your help, we're going to win. So thank you. So.